So before I get to Hayward, just to address the Bogdan thing, when Bogdan goes to a different team, because it looks like that's what's going to happen now, then I will talk about that whole situation. So Gordon Hayward opted out. I guess it's not too shocking to see, because why would he push it to the last minute unless he was thinking about declining it? And now you have to imagine that he's going to look for a move that gives him more security. It's probably less money up front, but it's a guaranteed 4-year contract or something like that, because the guy's had injuries, that sort of thing. I don't think it's a certainty that he's gone from the Celtics. I mean, you'd probably put your bet towards him leaving at this point, but I guess it's not a guarantee. We've heard the Knicks are interested in Hayward. We've also heard the Pacers, which I'm confused about because the Pacers are over the cap. Sign and trade, and that would get the famous Hayward for Miles Turner move in play. I have no idea how else that would really happen. Now, as for the Knicks, they could just sign Hayward. It's not really that complicated. Maybe the Celtics would attempt a sign and trade with the Knicks, but there's no reason for Hayward or the Knicks to have to agree to that. They could just sign Hayward and do whatever. But for the Celtics' sake, I mean, maybe they would want... Would they want Julius Randle? I don't know. I mean, you imagine the Knicks need to get him out of there, given that they just drafted Obi Toppin, who is an inside scorer. I'll get to that when I eventually do the Knicks video for selecting him, but I want to see how free agency goes first. But again, there's no reason for Hayward or the Knicks to accommodate the Celtics in that sort of thing. Now, for the Knicks' sake, they need shooting. Yeah, Hayward is another forward, and I know the Knicks meme of forwards, but unlike all the other ones they signed, Hayward can shoot, so I don't think it would really be a problem. Now, we assume the Knicks want to sign a point guard. Fred VanVleet is the obvious one. Now, as far as the Knicks' salary situation, they just made an Ed Davis move, so now they have, according to Bobby Marks on Twitter, who I'm going to trust here, they have $35 million to play with below the cap. If they want to sign VanVleet and Hayward, that $35 million is starting to look a little tight. They could look to get off of Ntilikina, Dennis Smith, or Kevin Knox. There are still some teams with cap space. So if they're going to sign Hayward to over $20 million here, then I don't know. It does start to look a little tough unless they can get some sign and trade action going. I think Julius Randle's contract continues to be interesting. So we'll have to see what they want to do, but if they just want to use cap space to get two players, with one of them being Hayward, it doesn't look as easy as it did even yesterday. Obi is going to be getting a, $7 million contract or whatever that is for the first pick, but you can sign your rookie while you're over the cap, so that one doesn't really affect this. Hayward on the Knicks, yeah, it would make sense for pretty obvious reasons. Hayward fits in pretty much everywhere. He can defend a few positions, he can shoot, he can dribble, he can drive, he's a good player. We would just hope that his 2 ankle injuries have not reduced him as a player. Now, I think another thing to think about with Hayward is that this could be his last significant contract in the NBA, and whoever is going to give him some money, they're going to have to think about how Hayward is going to age as he's 33, 34, because I'm just guessing it's going to be a 4-year contract. It could be shorter, you never really know, but if it is, then you would imagine Hayward can, for probably 2 to 3 seasons, fit in really well and give you his nice 17, 18 points a game and that whole thing. And I wouldn't be shocked if a team could then hope to extend him past the first contract. We'll have to see. I mean, speculating on how Hayward can age, I feel like he can age pretty well. He's, of course, a very skilled player. His athleticism is not great, but it's pretty solid. The only fear is that athleticism declines to the point where he might just be like a spot shooter, and he can make some plays off the dribble, but not too much. I know some people go with the whole, well, he doesn't rely on his athleticism, so therefore he can age very well. I sort of look at it the opposite, where I'm like, well, if you're already not an amazing athlete at 29, then you might just be the slowest dude in the league at 33. But with that said, I am optimistic that Hayward can play until he's 35, 36, and he's always going to be able to shoot, he's always going to be a good passer, and he's always going to at least know how to play defense. We'll see if he's quick enough laterally and all that to defend as he gets older, but I feel like Hayward can be a real piece of a team for probably 5 or 6 years. Now, I haven't seen confirmation on whether Phoenix has actually completed the Chris Paul trade yet, technically. If they haven't, then they actually have cap space to go for Hayward. Because, again, they matched, or they got close to CP's money in that trade, so they could do that while they're over the cap. I figure the Hawks are going to be in play here. I mean, they got Tony Snell, but they sent out Deadman's money, so their actual salary situation hasn't really changed. I feel like some people might be like, well, they've got Herter and DeAndre Hunter and Cam Reddish. Why would they sign Hayward? None of those guys are good enough to not sign Hayward. I wonder if Charlotte would have any hopes of getting him, because they've got a bunch of cap space. They're only sitting at $80 million right now, and they don't have any incoming money right now. And that's kind of it, unless somebody else is going to find a way to get themselves a whole bunch of cap space. I mean, there's Miami. The Pelicans are going to max Ingram, so that kind of throws that whole thing off, I feel like. So we'll see. I mean, I feel like it's kind of anybody's game right now. I mean, obviously the Knicks are the ones making the most news for Hayward, but we don't know about what Hayward wants. As far as for the Celtics, yeah, they could re-sign him. It's not a guarantee he's gone. If he does leave, then the Celtics, I mean, they're out of the luxury tax. And I think they would be in play for the full mid-level of $9 million. You could go for somebody, perhaps. I mean, it'd be cool if they could get Joe Harris or Ibaka or Jeremy Grant or whatever. Who knows what other offers those guys are going to get. Of course, it should be said the Celtics did draft my guy and Aaron Nesmith, so they'll at least have one shooter coming off the bench this offseason for the first time in what feels like my entire life. So we'll see what happens with all that stuff. I guess there's always a possibility that some team that is over the cap would like to arrange a sign and trade for Hayward, and they could arrange something with the Celtics, but the decision comes down to Hayward. If he doesn't want to do that, then it doesn't happen. I mean, to look around the league real quick, just pulling random things out of nowhere. An Aaron Gordon Hayward sign and trade. I haven't talked about this in the video. I mentioned this on Twitter. The Hawks selecting Okongwu seems weird to me because, you know, they have Collins and Capella already. You really used that on your 6th pick. So that could still be something that's in play, like a Hayward to Atlanta with the Celtics getting Okongwu back. But again, the Hawks could just sign Hayward at this point. Man, there's other random ones around the league. Harrison Barnes remains my random favorite trade guy in the NBA. He's going to end up just playing out that whole contract with how much I've talked about him and moves. So we'll see. The last thing I want to talk about with the Celtics is, what the hell, dude? Why is this the third free agent who might bounce? Is there something going on behind the scenes in Boston that we don't know about? Because from the outside looking in, it seems pretty good. So what's going on? I mean, the 2019 Celtics, I've talked enough about them. I think it was a combination of a whole bunch of things. I don't think it was just Kyrie. But, you know, the Kyrie stuff happened, and maybe Kyrie just had no chance of ever staying in Boston no matter what. And Horford just saw the writing on the wall, and he left as well. And plus the fact that Philly gave Horford a contract that nobody else was going to be willing to give him. But you can't help but just be like, well, if Hayward's going to leave too, then I think it's fair to start speculating that something must be going on, whether it's miscommunications or people being told one thing and then lied to. I don't know. I mean, I'm a Celtics fan, but that doesn't mean I'm going to sit here and be like, well, everything's perfect. Players are just weird. No, like at a certain point, the team needs to be looked at, and we need to be like, why can't you convince guys to stay? I mean, was it a matter of Hayward was promised something and then Tatum went to a different level and now Tatum's the number one option and Hayward didn't like that? I mean, from my perspective, Hayward was still a pretty prevalent part of the offense. It could just be a matter of, you know, with all the injuries that Hayward's had, he just doesn't simply want to be there anymore because it, you know, mental stuff. I have no idea. But depending on where Hayward goes, that sort of thing could come out, and we don't know, man. But free agency starts in about 24 hours. So we're going to find out pretty quickly where Gordon Hayward's going.